The Lord don't change. The Gentiles. Alright, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praises, honor, glory, respect, and blessings to Yahweh, ahchyam, Yahweh Shai, Bashan Rakha Kwadash. Salutations to the Lord's elect on the four corners of the earth, pushing this truth in sincerity while patiently waiting for Yahweh Shai's return. And double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone, which have taught us everything we know through the spirit and power of Yahweh, ahchyam, Yahweh Shai. Now, before I begin this lesson, I would like to explain what a Gentile is. Now, in the Holy Scriptures, a Gentile, a natural Gentile, would be somebody who is not an Israelite. So if your father's lineage on your father's side does not go back to a so-called Negro, Latino, or a Native Indian, you would be a Gentile, which another word for a Gentile would be a heathen or a stranger. Now, the other type of Gentile would be the Israelites who became estranged from their customs. Okay, and these would be known as the Israelite Gentiles, because though they are Israelites, they were keeping the customs of the other nations. So they were looked at as heathens by the Israelites that was under the circumcision. So you have your natural Gentiles and you have your Israelite Gentiles. Now, being an Israelite living amongst the other nations, keeping their customs, if Jake had sex with a woman of another nation, he was keeping the customs of that particular nation. When his child is born and raised, his child is going to grow up thinking that he's going to grow up into the customs and he's going to grow up outside of his customs and his heritage, which is that he's an Israelite. So he's going to grow up living after the customs of the heathen nations, because even back in the ancient world, there were Israelites who did not know they were Israelites because they was born and raised outside of their customs, which is why the Lord raised up Paul to go to the Israelites who was scattered amongst these other nations. And the Israelites being scattered amongst these other nations is a part of the curses of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, where the Lord said that if Israel did not keep the laws, statutes, or commandments of the Holy Scriptures, that the curses of Deuteronomy 28 verse 15 on down would come upon them. And one of those curses that came down upon us was that we would be scattered amongst the other nations. And if an Israelite is scattered amongst the other nations, when he have a child living amongst these other nations, that child is going to be raised outside of his Israelite customs, which is the laws, statutes, and commandments that was given to the Israelites on Mount Sinai. and then he's going to have children, and his children are going to grow up walking after the manner of the heathen. So if we come over here in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 3, it says, "Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first." Okay, and what is that falling away? That falling away was when our heritage was taken from us. Okay, and some would argue, well, we completely lost our heritage during the time of slavery. But really, that falling away started way back then before slavery. Just real quick, let's go to Jeremiah chapter 17 verse 4. Okay, so Jeremiah chapter 17 verse 4, because that falling away is all about Israel losing their, that falling away is all about us losing our heritage as a nation of people. Jeremiah 17 verse 4, "And thou even thyself shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee." Okay, so this didn't just happen to Jeremiah, because really Jeremiah is a representation of the whole nation of Israel, because the moment we went into slavery during the Renaissance period, ultimately as a nation of people, we lost our nationality, our heritage, our customs. It was all beaten out of us. Okay, but even before the Dark Ages, even before the Roman Empire, even before then, we was losing our heritage. So the Israelite Gentiles go way back, which I will get into in just a moment. So it says, "And thou even thyself shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not, for ye have kindled a fire in my anger, which shall burn forever." So that falling away actually starts with when we went into captivity under the Grecians, because under the Babylonian captivity we knew we were Israelites. The proof of that was Daniel. Daniel, he was praying to Yahweh, ahchyam, Yahweh, various other prophets and Israelites, who still had the names, were calling on Yahweh, ahchyam, Yahweh. During the time of the Persian and the Medes, we were allowed to, rebuild a temple or whatnot, which you can learn about that in the book of First Ezra or First Esdras, where it talks about, how we were in captivity under the Babylonians, the ancient Babylonians, and then the Persian and the Medes. But when the Greeks rose up into power, that's when we really started to lose our heritage. And then you had something going on called the Hellenization period, where Israelites who became Hellenized became estranged from their customs. So we come over here to 2 Maccabees chapter 6 verse 1. It says, "Not long after this king," which the king was Antiochus, okay? "Not long after this king sent an old man to Athens to compel the Jews to depart from the laws of their fathers and not to live after the laws of God." So let's read that again. "Not long after this, the king sent an old man of Athens to compel the Jews, the Israelites, to depart from the laws of their fathers." Now, don't get me wrong. You still have men like Judas Maccabees, who's keeping the law, statutes, and commandments to the best of his ability. You had other men Eleazar. You had many other notable men who were, who still knew they were Israelites. But this right here is the beginning of us losing our heritage. Okay? So it says, not long after this, the king sent an old man of Athens to compel the Jews to depart from the laws of their fathers and not to live after the laws of God. So what happened? A lot of our people were forced to live outside of the customs that was rightfully given to us. Okay? Because, the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Holy Scriptures, which is a part of that first covenant, which the Lord, which we made with the Lord by sacrifice. You can read about that in Exodus. Basically, we were not allowed. A lot of us was not allowed to live after the laws of our power. You see that? And that started with Antiochus. Basically he had our people sacrificing swine on the altar, and a lot of our children were not being circumcised. And because a lot of our people was becoming Hellenized around this time, a lot of our people was being raised up outside of the law, statutes, and commandments, which was given to us from Mount Sinai. So this is like the very beginning of our heritage, being taken from us. And our heritage was taken away from us as a nation of people when we went into captivity during the Renaissance period. So here it says, and to pollute also the temple in Jerusalem, and to call it the temple of Jupiter Olympius. Okay? And that in Gerizim of Jupiter, the defender of strangers, as they did desire that dwell in the place. It says, the coming in of this mischief was sore and grievous to the people. You see that? It says, for the temple was filled with riot and reveling by the Gentiles, who dallied with harlots and had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places. And besides that, brought in things that were not lawful. So you see, and a lot of our people at around this time started to become like the Gentiles. They started becoming Hellenized. Because an Israelite that becomes Hellenized, he becomes as a Gentile. Even though he's still an Israelite, he was still looked at as a Gentile or a heathen, because he was keeping the customs of the other nations. The Hellenized Israelites were keeping the customs of the Greeks. That's the word Hellenized means to be made like unto a Greek. So that's what happened with a lot of our people, and that's why in the Roman Empire, our people was participating in orgies. They had something called gymnos. Our people was eating swine. They was shaving their faces smooth. It was a lot of sodomite activity going on. So those Israelites were looked at as Gentiles. Now, if you was an Israelite living amongst the Arabs or the East Indians or the Moabites or the Japanese people, you was keeping their customs, you know. And generally, if you was born and raised under their customs, you didn't know you was an Israelite. You thought you was as one of them. That's just like, you know, when we was born and raised in this society. You know, a lot of us, when we were children growing up in America, we did not know we were Israelites. We thought we was African American. We thought we were black. You know, we was eating swine's flesh. We was celebrating Christmas, Halloween. So what did that make us? That made us Gentiles because we were living like them. So it says, the altar was filled with profane things which the law forbiddeth. So you start to see how our heritage started to slip away from us while this Antiochus guy had rule over us. It says, neither was it lawful for a man to keep the Sabbath days or ancient fasts or to profess himself at all to be a Jew. So at this point, you was not even allowed to call yourself an Israelite. You see that? So when you go to the New Testament and you hear about these Gentiles, who is that talking about? Well, let's go to the book of James. Let me see. Salak. I'm gonna go to Google real quick. Okay, so let's type in. Will he go to disperse? Go to the disperse of Salak, capital J. KJV. Let me see, Zechariah. So this is the book of John, chapter 7, verse 35. It says, then said the Jews among themselves, whither will he go? Well, you know what? Let's start up a bit so you can understand what's going on here. Yeah, let's start at verse 33. So around this time when Yahushua was on the scene, right? A lot of our people had already been dispersed amongst these heathens and was basically keeping their customs. So then let's John chapter 7 verse 33. Then said Yahushua unto them, yet a little while am I with you, and then I go unto him that sent me. Ye shall seek me and shall not find me, and where I am, thither ye cannot come. Then said the Jews among themselves, whither will he go, that we should not find him? Will he go unto the dispersed among the Gentiles and teach the Gentiles? So when they said the dispersed, what is that talking about? That's talking about the Israelites that have been scattered and dispersed among the Gentiles, among the heathen. Okay? So this is talking about the dispersed Israelites living amongst the Gentiles. Okay. Furthermore, let's go to James, which that word dispersed there is diaspora. Matter of fact, let's go to blueletterbible.org and type in John 7 verse. Let's look up that word disperse. John 7 verse 35. Okay, so here we go. Let's see. So let's see. We see. Bear with me for one moment here. We go into the dispersed diaspora. Okay. As you see right here.
Strong's G1290. Diaspora.
Alright, diaspora. Then if you scroll down here, right, it says a scattering. Okay, now what does it tell you in the book of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter? The Lord said that He would scatter us amongst all the other nations. Okay, a scattering. Okay, and a matter of fact, let's come over here real quick to Deuteronomy, if I'm spelling that correctly, chapter 28, verse, I don't know the exact verse. So let's do this, okay? Then hit Ctrl F and type in scatter. Okay, so this is Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 64, and this is a part of the curses which the Lord said would happen to the Israelites if they did not keep the laws, if they did not keep the Lord's laws, statutes, or commandments. And we ended up turning our back on the Lord, so the punishment was that we ended up being scattered amongst the heathen. So it says, and the Lord shall scatter thee among all people. What are these people that the Israelites will be scattered amongst? The heathen. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all the heathen from one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods which neither thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. So the proof that the Israelites was living, and bear with me for one moment, I know I'm all over the place here. The proof that the Israelites were scattered amongst all the people worshiping idols. Let's see. Let me see. Ye knew. What scripture is that? Maybe that's let's go to the 10th chapter. No. So maybe it's 2 Corinthians. Let's try 2. You know what? Just to save myself some time. Okay, and I'm gonna go back to that word, this diaspora, just real quick. Bible, okay. Ye know how that ye were Gentiles. Oh my God, forgive me. Ye know how they carried away, KJV. Okay, the 12th chapter, whatever. Okay, so let's view this chapter before I continue. So this is the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 12 verse 1. Now concerning spiritual gifts, brethren, I would not have you ignorant. Now, if you notice, Paul said brethren. Who's your brethren? The people that is of your nation. Okay, Paul was not calling the Arabs his brethren. He was not calling the Africans his brethren. He was not calling the Chinese or Japanese people his brethren. Who are Paul's brethren? The Israelites. That's who Paul's brethren are. So it says, so basically, Paul basically went to the Israelite Gentiles, that was living in Corinth, Greece. Now concerning spiritual gifts, brethren, I would not have you ignorant. Ye know that ye were Gentiles, carried away unto these dumb idols, even as ye were led. Okay, so did not the Lord say that would happen to the Israelites? He said that the Lord said that he would scatter us among the heathen nations from one end of the earth even unto the other, and there we were going to serve other gods, which neither our fathers known, even wood and stone. So even back then, the curse of Deuteronomy 28 verse 64 had already taken effect on our people. So not only was our people, during the time of Paul, not only was our people dispersed among the heathen nations, but they was also worshiping idols, which neither their fathers have known. And guess what? Because they was worshiping these idols, because they was keeping the customs of these heathen nations, what did that make our people? Gentiles. Israelite Gentiles. Israelites who were estranged from their customs. Israelites who were born outside of their heritage. You see? So it says, ye know that ye were Gentiles, carried away unto these dumb idols, even as ye were led. So there you go. Paul called his own brethren Gentiles. So that proves that Paul did not go to the heathen nations preaching the gospel. He went to the Israelites that was living amongst the heathen nations. The Israelites that was dispersed amongst the heathen nations. You know, preaching the gospel. That's who Paul went to. Okay. Case in point, Cornelius, who was an Israelite. So, you know, let's go back to the blueletterbible.org and let's type in John 7:35. Yes, let's continue going into that word diaspora. John chapter 7 verse 35. But you see, if the Lord did not bless you with the spiritual discernment, you know, you'll stumble at that word Gentile. Hey, see, look, that's talking about a gook. No, that's talking about Israelites living amongst them. Okay, so we know about the dispersed among the Gentiles because the Lord said that he would scatter our people amongst all people. Now, let's go down here. Okay, so diaspora, as you see right there for the word disperse. And here we see what? A scattering, dispersion of Israelites dispersed among foreign nations. Okay, you see that? Of Israelites dispersed among foreign nations. Then down here it says of the Christians scattered abroad among the Gentiles. So this one has the best definition of Israelites dispersed among foreign nations. And what does that go back to? The curse of Deuteronomy, the 64th chapter. Okay? So there was something else I wanted to get to in 2nd Esdras. And I can't remember the exact verse, but he said it best. Yeah, we're going to just click on that. So let me see, Central F, let's type in. Okay, and yet their reward perith not. I have gone there, for I have gone here and there through the heathen, and I see that they go in the world and think not upon thy commandments. Right, because the heathen, they're not thinking about the Lord, okay? When I say heathen, I'm talking about the Chinese, the Japanese, the Africans, so-called white people, okay, them small hats, the Arabs, East Indians, and Hawaiians, okay. So what I would like to do here is, because that's not necessarily what I'm talking about or what I'm looking for. Let's see what we got here. Israel is given up as a reproach to the heathen for what cause over the ungodly nations in the law. Okay, let me see. Wherefore Israel is given up as a reproach to the heathen. See, Central F. Nothing here. Okay. Central F. Let's see. It's fucking. Okay, so just a moment. Central F. Nope, nothing. Okay, Central F. Alright, so it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to find it, because it was beautiful. What I had found in there. It's fine though. I don't necessarily need to find it. All right, so you see, let's go here. Okay. I don't know why it keeps doing that. Alright, so let's type in Bible here. And let's see. Now I am become an apostle. KJV. See, Romans, and I believe this is Paul speaking here. Okay. So before I read Romans 11 and 13, right, let's read this one up here so we can further clarify who Paul is speaking to here. See, he's not speaking to heathens, he's speaking to Israelite Gentiles that were living amongst the other nations. Okay. Romans chapter 11 verse 1, it says, I say then, have God cast away his people? God forbid. For I also am an Israelite of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. Okay. God hath not cast away his people which he foreknew. What ye not what the scripture saith of Elias, how he maketh intercession to God against Israel, saying, so now you know that Paul is talking about the Israelites here. Lord, they have killed thy prophets, dig down thine altars, and I am left alone. So he's speaking of Elijah. So now, if we go to verse 13, right? It says, now if the fall of them be the riches of the world, and the diminishing of the riches of the Gentiles, how much more their fullness? For I speak to you Gentiles. So who is Paul speaking here to? He's speaking to the Israelites who was living like the Gentiles amongst these other nations. It says, for I speak to you Gentiles, inasmuch as I am an apostle of the Gentiles, I magnify my office. Okay? And there's many more scriptures on the Gentiles. Let's type in grafted. Come on, man. All right, I'll just get it myself. I am not about to. 2 Corinthians chapter 12 verse 1. Let me see. I cannot tell if they were such an one is caught up to the third heaven. I knew. Let me see. It says truly the size of the. Let me see, just a moment here. I'm gonna go to Google and post not for God is able to graft the man KJV. Romans 11. Okay, so let's see. So it's Romans 11 verse 11, right? So let's go here and type this in. It's the point I would like to make. Let's go up here. Okay, so Romans 11 verse 17, it says, and if the branches be broken off, and thou being a wild olive tree wert grafted in among them, and with them partakest of the root and fatness of the olive tree. Right? It says, boast not against the branches, but if thou boast, thou bearest not the root, but the root thee. Okay, thou wilt say then, the branches were broken off that I might be grafted in. Who are these branches? These branches are the Israelite Gentiles, okay, who was basically broken off from their heritage. You see? So now, what Paul did was he went to the dispersed among the Israelites, basically to graft them, back to their heritage. You see? To graft the Israelites back to their heritage. It says, well, because of unbelief they were broken off, and thou standest by faith, be not high-minded but fear. It says, for if God spare not the natural branches, take heed lest he also spare not thee. Right, because you also had Israelites that were of the circumcision who did not believe. So what happened? Paul went to the Israelites who were living like the Gentiles amongst these other nations to bring them back to their heritage. You see that? But yeah, pretty much hopefully the point has been made. With that, I'm going to say shalom. Is on to the next one.